Up in Canada on Axel Island, they find petrified redwood stumps. You can go to Axel Island. There are no trees on Axel Island. There are certainly no redwood trees growing there. How do we get fossilized redwood stumps on Axel Island? People say, well, hey, doesn't it take millions of years for things to petrify? No, things petrify quickly. There are scores of examples can be given where things have petrified in less than 100 years. Okay? 2 horse hoofs were found petrified in Oregon. A petrified water wheel shown here in this picture. Just the minerals replaced the wood. Here's petrified firewood. Here's a fishing reel stuck in a rock. They said the rock was 300 million years old. By the way, if any of you students want to make some money, University of Chattanooga, Tennessee, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, studied this thing, talked to the guy who owned it, and analyzed the whole thing and said, man, this is amazing, a reel stuck in a rock. If you can locate the owner of the reel and get me in touch with him, I want to see if he wants to put it on loan in our museum. And anybody who can find me, the owner, Dan Jones, find me the guy, get me his phone number, and let me talk to him. I'll give you $50 do some research if you're sleuths up here in Tennessee, you want to work on that one. UTC geology experts can't explain this. Why? How could a fishing reel be found in rock? If you go to Waycross, Georgia, they've got on display there at the Southern Forest World a mummified dog stuck in a tree. The dog apparently chased a coon up the tree and got stuck, and the dog is mummified. The tree was still alive. They named the dog Stucky. Here's a petrified cowboy boot with the cowboy's legs still in it. Articles on the table down there called the Limestone Cowboy. Here's a petrified fish giving birth. Here's a petrified hammer found in Hawaii. A petrified hat found in New Zealand. Petrified crayon found in Arizona. Petrified pincushion found in Wisconsin. A guy got found along a beach in Montana, was petrified, a petrified man. Here's a story about a petrified man in Gainesboro, Tennessee. The guy died in 1881. They buried him. 14 years later, they were going to bury his wife next to him when she died. They dug a hole for Grandma's grave, and water seeped into the hole, into the grave. They said, oh, we don't want to bury Grandma in the water, so they buried Grandma someplace else. Then the kids got worried about Grandpa buried in the water. So they dug up the grave. The body inside had turned to stone, except the arms had rotted off. The rest of the body had petrified in 14 years in a coffin in Tennessee. The man found in Fort Benton, Montana, was in 1897, found by Tom Dunbar. The guy was 5'8". Many medical doctors examined it and said, man, this is a petrified, complete human. Not the bones, the complete person, petrified. A lady in Sao Paulo, Brazil, was 62 years old. She went to the doctor and said, I got a pain in my side. They x-rayed her and found a petrified skeleton of a baby inside. She was pregnant and didn't know it. The baby had died and turned to stone inside the woman's body. It does appear the baby was about to be born, the doctor said that examined her. I talked to a guy from Maryland. He said, yeah, I drove the ambulance. We took a woman to the hospital one time in Snowden, Washington. There's his phone number there if you want to talk to Brian. He said she was taken to the hospital, and they removed a petrified fetus from this woman. It had turned to stone in her body. Here are petrified sacks of flour found in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Here's a petrified pickle found in Montana. This is in my museum. It was found in this jar. The guy sent it to me. He said, Brother Hovind, I found a petrified pickle inside a jar. The lid rusted off. Would you want it for your museum? I said, of course. Who in their right mind would not want a petrified pickle for their museum? There's a petrified toadstool just south of Bloomington, Illinois, in an amazing museum called the Funk Gem and Mineral Museum in Shirley, Illinois. If you ever drive out there, stop and see that place. This kid in the picture here sent me these petrified acorns. He's 7 years old. He said, Brother Hovind, I put the acorns in a bucket of water hoping they would sprout, and I forgot about them. A year later, when Mama found them on the back porch, they had turned to stone in a bucket of water. Petrified acorns. Here's petrified peanut cluster in the Ripley's Museum in Florida. Here are petrified charcoal briquettes. We've got them in our museum. Come down to Pensacola and see the petrified charcoal briquettes. Here's what appears to be a petrified coconut. The whole thing, it's in our museum in Pensacola. Here's the fossilized arm to an octopus I referred to earlier. This is a replica of it. Petrified octopus arm. There's an article in Handy Farm Devices, published 1909, on how to make petrified wood. For centuries, people have known how to make petrified wood so it'll last longer. People say, no, wait a minute, aren't the fossils of similar animals found in the same layers? Doesn't that prove, evolution? Because reptiles are found in the same layer. Well, if there's any sorting of the fossils, it's not proof of evolution, that's for sure. Actually, the textbooks teach the layers are well sorted, and it's simply not true. This guy, David Ropp, he's a professor at University of Chicago, I believe. He says, one of the ironies of the evolution-creation debate is that creationists have accepted the mistaken notion that the fossil record shows a detailed and orderly progression, and they have gone to great lengths to accommodate this fact in their flood geology. The layers are not in the orders they would like you to think they are. Niles Eldredge said, we date the layers by the fossils, and we date the fossils by the layers. It's circular reasoning. If there's any sorting to the fossil record, it's better explained by a flood. See, moving water in a flood situation does all sorts of interesting things. There's a phenomenon called cavitation, which is what happened at the Glen Canyon Dam in Arizona. The water got moving too fast, and it sucked the sides of the rock right off the canyon wall. Within just about 20 seconds, it made an area the size of a basketball court, 4 feet thick, 4 feet deep, sucking rocks right off the side because of cavitation. There's another phenomenon called hydraulic plucking. As in addition to abrasion, moving water in the flood would pick up debris. And it's not just water moving now, it's liquid sandpaper. It's got gravel and rocks and mud and tree stumps and stuff in it. It's going to erode right through solid rock. It's going to abrade its way through rock. Also, there's a phenomenon called liquefaction. Liquefaction happens when sand grains are pressed and then the pressure is relieved. If you go out to the beach in Pensacola, walk out into the surf and stand there knee-deep in the water and just stand there for a while. As the waves come by, the high part of the wave weighs more than the low part of the wave, obviously. There's more water there. So the high part of the wave pushes down on the sand under your feet. When the low part comes past you, the pressure is relieved, and sand grains start hopping up off the bottom as the water squeezes out of them. This phenomenon is called liquefaction. What would happen in a worldwide flood, as the earth is turning under the moon, you would get tides that would go up and down about 200 feet. A 200-foot tidal change every 6 hours and 25 minutes. So the liquefaction would be incredible worldwide because of this flood. It would raise the water 200 feet, which pushes on the sediments, and then the pressure is relieved, which causes all kinds of sorting to happen very quickly. One guy took a giant aquarium, and he put a hot water bottle in the bottom, a big rubber bladder with a bazillion little holes in it, and he hooked it to a hose. He put this in the bottom of his aquarium, empty aquarium, and then he took a cement mixer and mixed up rocks, gravel, sand, all kinds of stuff, mixed them together, including dead fish, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. Mixed them all together and dumped them in the aquarium. When he turned the hose on, the aquarium began filling from the bottom as the water's going through this hot water bottle. Well, as it lifts up from the water coming up, it's going to automatically lift things, and they're going to fall back down, liquefaction, and they're going to sort themselves by density. He discovered as it filled the aquarium, it sorted everything in the order of birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians. Well, that's the order they're going to tell you they evolved in. If you just remember the word farm, F-A-R-M, fish should be at the bottom, fish, amphibian, reptile, mammal. That's what the evolutionists will say, how they evolved. No, they're not found in that order, number one, and if they are found in that order, liquefaction, or the flood, best explains it. There's a whole lot more on that in this book right here by Walt Brown. Also, as some layers are less dense, they get covered up by more dense layers. If conditions are just right, the less dense layer will all of a sudden shoot to the top. It'll break its way through, and it causes what's called a sand plume. These sand